You won't believe how a $10 billion buy could send XRP to $90. Now, when I saw the numbers, I nearly fell out of my chair. Now, I'm serious, right? There's a new model floating around that shows exactly that scenario. XRP rocketing to $90 a coin on just a modest inflow of cash. Now, it blew my mind, and it might change how you think about crypto too. It sure changed my perspective. Now, this story has everything. It has a late night Twitter discovery. It has a prediction from years ago coming true, and even a real-life example that proves the point. By the end of this video, you're going to understand how a seemingly small amount of money can blow up a crypto's market cap to the stratosphere, and why that's both exciting and a little scary. So stick with me here because I'm going to keep it real with a few twists and turns along the way. Alright, so let me set the scene. It's like 2 AM and I'm doom scrolling crypto Twitter instead of falling asleep as one does. Suddenly I stumble upon a tweet from a guy named Phil Kwok. Phil's not just some rando guy either. He's the co-founder of a crypto app that I follow, and he's a pretty sharp dude. But what he posted sounded totally bonkers. He basically said that if someone bought $10 billion worth of XRP all at once, the price would shoot from around $3 to $90. Yes, $90 per XRP. Now, I'm reading that and my first reaction is, wait, what? Did I misread that? $90. There's no way. That can't be right. Now, I honestly thought that I was either too tired or Phil had a typo in there. So naturally, I do a double take, and at that moment, I swear any kind of trace of sleepiness is now gone. I'm wide awake. Heart is pounding like I just chugged a double espresso. Because if there's even a shred of truth to that claim, it is huge. In fact, I actually kind of screenshotted the tweet and dropped it into our free educational Discord server at like 2 in the morning to see if anyone else is awake to sanity check me. And by the way, if you're not in the Discord, you're missing out. It's free, it's fun, and it's a great place to learn and chat. The link, of course, is in the description. So anyway, I post it and people are like, bro, are you okay? Have you been hacked? Did someone slip something into your midnight snack? It was that unbelievable. But Phil provided some details, so I dig deeper, and here is the scoop. Now, at the time of his simulation, XRP was trading at around $2.97, basically $3, right? The total supply of XRP is around 59.3 billion coins. So you do the math and the market cap was around $176 billion at that price. It's pretty big, but nowhere near something like Bitcoin's market cap, right? So Phil's model, imagine a kind of buyer comes along with a rather fat wallet, $10 billion in fact, and starts buying XRP at market price, just gobbling up all of the sell orders that are available. Now in the simulation, once this hypothetical $10 billion buy was done, XRP's price didn't just creep up a little bit. It went from $2.97 to $90. And I'm not kidding, $90. So my jaw dropped so hard that I almost woke up the neighbors, right? Think about what that means. XRP's market capitalization would have exploded from around $176 billion to roughly $5.3 trillion. That was with a T, right? Off just of a $10 billion of buying pressure. Now that kind of jump feels illegal or something, you know, like physics wouldn't allow for that. Yet here it was on the screen. So let's put it another way. Phil's model showed a multiplier effect of about 516 times. Now that means for every $1 that came in, the market cap grew by $516. It's kind of like turning $1 into $516 of market value. If that doesn't blow your mind, I mean, I'm literally questioning reality at this point. So obviously the first question on my mind is, how the heck is that possible? Although I've covered this a few times, I'm going to cover it again for you guys. How can a seemingly or relatively small amount of money create such a massive value spike? Normally, you'd think if market cap went up by $5 trillion, then someone might have put in $5 trillion. But no, here we're talking about $10 billion causing that. And it sounds like a kind of get-rich-quick fantasy, but it isn't magic. It's not magic at all. It actually comes down to basic market mechanics. on steroids, admittedly, in this scenario. Okay. Here we go again. Let me break it down in plain English because I had to break it down for many people over the years, right? It all comes down to something called the order book, right? If you've ever traded on an exchange like Kraken or Coinbase Pro or even Binance, you're going to know that there is an order book with buys, which are called bids, and sell orders called asks at different prices. Now, normally, if you want to buy, you pay whatever the lowest ask is, or at least price is, right? Matched with a seller and the deal is done, right? Now, in a calm market, if you buy a bit of XRP, you might nudge the price up a tiny bit, maybe a few cents, because there are plenty of people selling all around the current price. But if you're trying to buy a lot of XRP and hardly anyone is selling at the current price, well, let's go ahead and use an analogy. Imagine an auction or a marketplace for, let's say, rare vintage comic books, right? There's a bunch of people willing to sell a particular comic for around $3 because that's roughly what at least what it's been worth, right? But beyond that, not many people even consider selling their comics unless the price gets higher, right? You know, crazy high, like $90, or why not 90 in this scenario, right? Maybe because at $90, it's life-changing money for a comic book owner that maybe they got for 50 cents. So let's only part with it at that kind of crazy price. Now, if I come along and say, I want to buy as many of these comics as possible, money is no object, then I can start buying them at $3 from whoever is selling right there. Now I'll quickly run out of sellers at $3 because there are only so many willing to sell at that particular price. So when I have no choice but to offer $4, then $5, and I'm still hungry for more, then so I just keep up their price ladder, $10, $20, $50, and eventually maybe the next person willing to sell a decent chunk is all the way up there at $90. So guess what? At least if I really have $10 billion to spend and I'm that desperate to accumulate, I might end up paying $90 for the last portion of XRP because that's the first price where someone said, okay, fine, you can have my XRP at this crazy high price. Now, in simpler terms, there just aren't many XRP sell orders sitting around $3 and $90. So why would there be, right? Most people don't bother placing a sell order at $90 when the price is $3. It's kind of like listing your $100,000 house for $30 million, right? You just don't do that unless you're kind of joking, right? So unless you're one of those hopeful people who sets a moonshot sell order just in case, you know, hey, I've seen people do it and there's no judgment. I might or might not have a silly sell order far up there too, just in case. So basically, Phil's simulation had this hypothetical buyer kind of plow through all of the sell orders from $2.97 all the way up to $90. It was like Pac-Man munching through dots, except the dots were people's sell orders on the exchanges. And when Pac-Man eats all of the dots, one big, at least only the big ones are left, you know, at the far end, right? The price just has to go boom. Now, I'm a see it to believe it kind of guy. So even I went to check the real order books for myself after seeing this. I pulled up Kraken Pro, one of the exchanges that I regularly use. Full disclosure, of course, I have an affiliate link for Kraken Pro in the description. If you happen to use it, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does support the channel here, so thank you. Anyway, I look at Kraken's XRP order book, and sure enough, there's a decent amount of XRP for sale around the current price, but just a few cents or up a few dollars, the sell orders, they thin out dramatically. Now I'm scrolling to see if the little orders at maybe $5 or $10, and then there's basically a ghost town all the way up higher. So it was a bit of an eye-opening situation, right? That kind of confirmed that the model wasn't saying beyond the nearby price levels, liquidity was super thin. It was rather interesting. And so at this point in my late night research, two things are happening here. One, I'm realizing that this scenario might actually be legit possible under the right conditions. It's still crazy, but it is possible. And two, I'm remembering that this isn't the first time that I've heard something like this. Enter my friend Dom. Now, Dom is an analyst that I followed for a while, and he's obsessed, in a good way, with order books and liquidity. Now, the guy watches exchange data like a hawk. Now, for years, he's been kind of the town crier on crypto Twitter, shouting, guys, the XRP order book is so thin. One day, someone's going to make a market buy so big, and this thing is going to jump dollars in minutes. And honestly, a lot of people just rolled their eyes at him back in the day. Now, I remember seeing those tweets and thinking, sounds nice, but I'll believe it when I see it. But Dom has receipts. So let me rewind. In late 2023, XRP was chilling under $1 for the longest time. I think it was around 50 to 70 cents or something like that. Not a ton of hype at that moment in time. And Dom said quite publicly that if it just hits $1 billion of buy pressure came in, well, XRP would move up by several dollars. That sounded nuts to me back then, because $1 billion making something go from 50 cents to $3 plus is like a 6x. It seemed, you know, exaggerated. But Dom was literally looking at how many sell orders existed at each level, and apparently beyond the first dollar, there wasn't, or at least there wasn't that much there. There weren't many. You can flash forward about a year. Last December, XRP has been gradually climbing up after some positive developments. And then boom, one day it ripped past $1, then $2, and it was like nothing, right? It happened so fast. I remember it vividly because I woke up that morning, checked my phone, and XRP was kind of around $2.30, $2.50. I had a double take, right? What did I miss? Did Ripple announce that they bought Amazon or something? Right? Crypto Twitter was on fire, people scrambling for explanations. Some thought it was a coordinated whale pump, and others thought that maybe it was a big announcement leak or something. And Dom, he was basically saying, told you so, right? He explained that nothing magical happens news-wise. What happened is someone or several someones started buying big, and there just weren't there were hardly any sell orders to kind of slow it down until it hit those higher levels. In other words, exactly what he was predicting. He also pointed out something really interesting. Many XRP holders have their sell targets set extremely high. There's almost a meme in the XRP community about having iron hands when it comes to 2 or 3 digits, right? Now, people say that they won't sell until $10 or $50 or $100. Some even shout about $1,000. Hey, dream big or go home, right? Now, whether people will actually hold on that long when reality hits is another story. But the effect is that a lot of XRP isn't even trying to be sold at these kind of mid-range prices. They're not putting those coins on the exchange order books yet. And they're not doing it at $5, $10, because they intend to hold for way more. So effectively, a huge chunk of the supply is off the market, at least to kind of pretty high prices. Now, it's like everyone is holding their golden tickets waiting for the jackpot. Then they kind of refuse to cash in until big numbers, you know, hit the stratosphere. Now that creates a supply squeeze. So when new demand hits, even if not huge in absolute dollar terms, the price shoots up because nobody is selling at least into that demand until the price reaches those outlandish levels. So let's think of it like a concert with, you know, unassigned seating, right? If hardly anyone is willing to give up their seat and more people keep pouring in, the few seats that are actually available become insanely valuable. Now, people paying ridiculous money for nosebleed seats just to get in, because that is kind of what's all that is left. And so, yeah, Dom's been preaching this thin liquidity gospel for quite a while, and Phil's model basically put numbers to it and said, okay, here's how high it could theoretically go. Now, I'm fully down this rabbit hole at 3 a.m. Adrenaline is pumping, connecting these dots. It's thrilling and a bit surreal to see it all kind of line up. Now, before we all start daydreaming about retiring early on XRP, gains, let me hit the brakes for a second with a reality check. Now this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so I had to say that. Deep breath, we're in the crazy hypothetical land here, so don't go mortgaging your house because you think XRP will hit $50 or $90 tomorrow, okay? Cool, let's get back to the main story because to really hammer home that this thin liquidity stuff isn't just theory, let me share something that Dom posted a few months ago that blew my mind all over again. Right? He actually tracked trading data across a bunch of exchanges over a 13-hour stretch one day, around May of this year. Now, in half of the day window, there was about $61 million more buying than selling for XRP. So net buy volume, $61 million. Not billion, right? Million, right? Now, for big institutions, $61 million is pocket change, right? Well, guess what? That $61 million push resulted in XRP's total market cap increasing by roughly $16.6 billion. That was with a B. Now, I remember seeing his post and doing a double take. $61 million led to $16.6 billion increase in hypothetical value, right? That's roughly a 272x multiplier. So if I wasn't convinced before, that kind of sealed the deal for me. It's exactly what Phil's model predicted, happening in real life, just with smaller numbers. It was like seeing a mini version of the 10 billion scenario playing out right in front of us. Proof in the pudding, as grandma would say. And so it sounds like alchemy, right? Turning millions of dollars into billions of dollars on paper at least. But the logic is the same stuff that we've been talking about, right? Each new dollar pushed the price up more than you would actually expect because there were so few sellers actually offering XRP. Every extra uptick in price revalued all of the XRP in existence at that higher price, which balloons the total market cap figure. Now, I want to clarify something here because it's a common misunderstanding. Market cap, price times supply, often tricks people, right? They'll say if XRP is $90, that means it would need $5 trillion. And theoretically, $5 trillion actual, or at least $5 trillion actual dollars have to come on in. And no, it is not true, right? Market cap is a bit of an illusion. I've been saying this for many years, and it's an illusion in that very sense, right? It reflects what the entire supply would be worth at the last traded price. But it doesn't mean that that amount of money was spent or that you could even cash out that full market cap value without the price again changing, right? The market cap and liquidity are two different things. It's kind of like if you own 100 apples that usually sell for $1 each. And someday someone is so eager, that they actually pay you $2 for one apple. Now the market price is $2. And technically all of your remaining 99 apples are worth $2 each on paper. You would have to say that you have $198 worth of apples now instead of the $100. But how much money was actually spent? $2. Right? So if you tried to sell all 100 apples at $2, you'd quickly find that not enough buyers at that price. The price would drop to find, at least as you kind of sell more, to find the sellers, right? Or buyers. So that $198 market value is kind of just theoretical. It can vanish as if it actually, if you try to actually sell it all at once. It just is impossible. And it's the same with crypto, right? The price is set by the last trade. So if the last trade of XRP happens at $90 and there are 59 billion XRP, and voila, the market cap looks like $5.3 trillion. Doesn't mean that $5.3 trillion actually poured in. It just means that the last slither of XRP traded at that price, thus revaluing everyone else's holdings and that particular snapshot in time, right? If selling pressure comes in, that price and the market cap will fall all over again. Right? This is a sum zero game. Money doesn't just materialize. It isn't made out of thin air. It is only ever transferred between the participants. So let's hypothetically say that the liquidity is $10 billion. You could only ever pull out $10 billion maximum. So once I fully grasped all of that many years ago, I was like, so this is how those wild price predictions could technically happen. It's not magic, it's not guaranteed to last, but it is possible if all the conditions align. So we should now talk about those conditions, right? You might be thinking, all right, fine, it's possible on paper, but who on earth is going to drop $10 billion in one go to make all of this happen? And it's a great question. I asked myself the same thing. Now, the obvious answer here is that probably no single sane investor is likely to do that in one market order, right? Because they would just be shooting themselves in the foot, right? They would drive the price up against themselves and get terrible feels on most of their buys. It would be awful. But consider a scenario where multiple big players are FOMOing in all at the same time, or where one XRP suddenly has a major kind of breakthrough and lots of money just rushes in all at the same time. For example, imagine XRP gets some regulatory green light or a massive partnership announcement. Suddenly a bunch of hedge funds, institutions, maybe even central banks, hey, one can dream, they decide to allocate to XRP. Now, if a few of them collectively put in $10 billion over a very short period, it could mimic that $10 billion scenario. It might not be literally in one order, but it could, be many smaller buys all kind of piling up. And the result is going to be rather similar, right? If they all kind of overwhelm the sell side of the order books in a rather short span of time. Another scenario is that XRP gets integrated into a major financial system or new global use case that requires a ton of XRP to actually be purchased for reserves or for liquidity. So think of some large banks or countries start using XRP for settlement, right? They need to stock up. Suddenly, $10 billion of demand might not actually sound so crazy. An entire sector could contribute to that, right? Ripple, the company behind XRP, has been working on getting banks and payment providers on board for years. So this, again, it isn't pure fantasy. Even something like an ETF, right? An XRP exchange-traded fund gets approved and thousands of retail investors and institutional investors' money could pour into the fund, and it would have the fund would actually have to buy XRP off of the market. Now that would and could generate huge buy pressure in a very short space of time. Potentially billions if we take a look at BTC, for example. So while $10 billion in a single trade is improbable, a frenzy of buying that totals $10 billion in a short space of time could happen right under the right conditions anyway. Now, I should stress though that in reality, if the price started skyrocketing like that, it probably wouldn't get all the way up to $90 before cooling off. Why? Because human psychology kicks in. At some point along the climb, some holders are going to go, holy smokes, it's $10, now $20, now $50. You know what? I'm going to sell a little now and finally buy that car or house. So that selling could actually add more supply to the order books, which would potentially slow things down on that rocket ride. So maybe instead of $90, maybe the price pauses at $20 or $30 or whatever level where enough people start taking profits, right? The exact number is anyone's guess. It kind of depends on the hype, the news, and where people's, okay, I'll sell now points are. Now, Dom actually mentioned this. He expects XRP will only really find a top when a flood of selling reappears. In plain terms, XRP will pump until it triggers enough holders to say, all right, this is high enough. I'm cashing out now. And then the supply crunch eases and the price can stabilize or drop. So there's a likely limit to all of this madness. Now, I don't want to give the impression that $90 is some kind of guarantee or some kind of solid prediction here. No, I'm not doing that. It's more of a glimpse into how the mechanics of the market could allow for something that sounds impossible, right? A multi-trillion-dollar market cap to happen with a lot less money than you would actually think, right? It shows the power of market depth, or the lack thereof. It's both inspiring and a little terrifying, right? It's inspiring because it means that maybe those moonshot dreams, they aren't actually that far-fetched given the right catalyst. Like, I used to think, $100 XRP was pure hopium, and while I still think it's a long shot, I at least see how it could theoretically occur. But it's also terrifying because it means that the market can wildly can be wildly out of equilibrium. It can swing like a pendulum, when it's imbalanced. And remember, thin liquidity, it works both ways, right? We've been talking about the upside, but how it can cause a rocket upwards. But of course, the flip side is that it can, sometimes, something can spook a whole ton of XRP holders, and well, they'll all try to sell and there'll be few buyers. The price would tank dramatically. Anyone remember December of 2020, right? If everyone is holding out for $100, but suddenly they panic and they want to dump whatever price, the buyers only bid way lower, right? The price could free fall. Now, I saw a mini version of this in various different crypto crashes. When liquidity dries up, prices drop faster than you can blink. So thin order book is a double-edged sword. It's great for parabolic rises and it's awful for crashes. Volatility cuts both ways. Now, personally, this whole adventure has left me with a much healthier respect for how liquidity, or the lack of, can make or break the market move, right? I used to kind of scoff at, those $10 XRP, $100 XRP kind of talk by immediately doing the kind of, simplistic kind of market cap math in my head. But oh, no, right? That would be more like in Bitcoin's market cap, right? It's not going to happen. Case closed, right? You see these even in the comments of these videos, right? But now, of course, and as I've tried to illustrate to you guys for years, that if 99% of holders refuse to sell and even a moderate amount of new money comes in, prices can do pretty absurd things, at least temporarily. And of course, sustaining those highs is another matter altogether. Eventually, reality, the supply and the demand, kicks in. But those can still spike. Those spikes can, of course, still happen, right? Stop focusing on market cap. Start focusing in on the supply, the demand, because price dictates market cap. The supply, the demand dictates the price. And it's the imbalance that we all secretly want. Now, I shared all of this with my buddies on Discord once everyone had their kind of morning coffee, of course, and it kind of sparked an amazing discussion, right? We were all throwing around what if scenarios, and people were debating what they would do if XRP really did hit $90 overnight. Some said that they would sell immediately and go and buy a house and a Lambo that same day. Others joked that they would hold out for $500 because, hey, if it can go to $90, why not keep riding it? Right? We even discussed things like, would exchanges halt trading if a move like that violent actually happened? How would the media actually react, right? You have crypto coin goes from $3 to $90, makes overnight millionaires. That sort of headline, right? It was kind of like a mini kind of think tank on extreme crypto scenarios. Exactly the kind of nerdy yet exciting talk that I live for. Again, if you want to be a part of these kind of conversations, our free Discord server link is down below. We'd love to have you there. Anyway, to wrap up all of this, what did I learn from this little journey? Well, for one, never say never, right? A lot of us like to pretend that we know what's possible or impossible in markets based on past patterns and basic math. But crypto keeps humbling everybody. Just when I think something's too crazy to consider, someone comes along with some data that says, hey, well, under these certain conditions, that crazy can become real. That said, I'm not telling you that XRP will ever see $90 or that you should go out and buy a ton expecting that to happen. Not at all. All I am saying is keep an open mind, understand the mechanics that are at play, and be prepared, right? If one day XRP is popping off like popcorn in a kettle, right, then you wouldn't mind, or won't be kind of mystified, I guess, you'll know it's probably because some big money finally decided to test those thin order books that we've been talking about. And you'll know that it can overshoot reality by a rather long shot. So if you do see that happen, maybe take a moment, recall this video and think about your plan. Are you going to stick to your original exit strategy, take a little bit of profit, hold through it? There's no right answer, but it helps to have a plan before you start seeing these things like $90 prices. Eyes blurry and hands shaking all over that sell button or buy button, if we're wild enough to chase it. Because man, if something like this $10 billion buy scenario even goes down for real, it's going to be one that the crypto history books, right, that talk about. And I, for one, don't want to get caught off guard. All right, that's the wild story that I wanted to share. What do you think? Do you think XRP could hit crazy numbers like this under the right circumstances? Or is it still sound too good to be true, too far-fetched? I'd like to hear your plans and what your thoughts are, so do let me know, right? Seriously, let me know in the comments. Would you sell immediately? Would you hold for higher? Would you just faint on the spot? I'm curious. But anyway, thanks for sticking with me. And hey, if you've enjoyed this wild thought experiment and want to join me on more, make sure to subscribe. I promise I'll keep digging up the most jaw-dropping stories in crypto. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.